So today we're going to be talking about how Hans Zimmer is one of today's greatest film composers because of his ability to turn what is happening on screen into a beautiful musical representation. And so for today's video, we're going to be looking at the movie Interstellar. So first, before we jump into the movie music, let's talk a little bit about Hans Zimmer. So who is Hans? He was born in 1957 in Frankfurt, Germany. Spent his young adult years living in London, playing keyboard in various bands, most prominently the Buggles. After this, he moved on to producing music, and eventually from there stepped into composing for movies around the late 80s. And all of this with no formal education outside of 2 weeks of piano lessons. And he's just been producing movie scores ever since. Some of his notable works are Rain Man, Lion King, Gladiator, The Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, and The Road to El Dorado, and many, many more. So this quote here from Christopher Nolan is someone that Zimmer has worked with multiple times. I have never worked with someone so dedicated to the idea that the real risk is in playing it safe. I think this quote describes Zimmer's music so well just because there's so many things that he does that are just out of the box and taking chances with the kind of music that he's writing. So, among the many things that makes Hans Zimmer stand out, one of the most notable things is his proclivity for mixing orchestral music and electronic music in so much of his works. So, for example, here we have his workstation, his studio, and you see his keyboard here, and just all kinds of technologies that he uses to help create these scores. And another little fun fact about his work with the Buggles is that he was on MTV's first music video went out that was Music Killed the Radio Star, just for a quick second in the background. This is young Hans Zimmer right here. All right, moving on to movie music. What is it good for? So, obviously, music is good in a movie. It helps to establish setting through, playing music could set up date parameters, maybe wherever in the world it is from what song you're playing. Helps to create mood and give a feeling to a scene. Can help reinforce and foreshadow narrative elements. And it can help to clarify a character's emotions. So, music in film does all this and more in the efforts to draw viewers in and absorb them further into the world that is being created on the screen. Moving on, we're going to start looking at some of the music in Interstellar and why it's so good. First, we're going to look at Interstellar's main theme. Now, this one has a recurring thematic element throughout the movie is time or the lack thereof in some parts. And so Zimmer plays around with this a lot throughout the soundtrack. In this piece, that point is just a constant drone of a repeated E. We see that here, just straight throughout an E. And then further on in the piece, strings come in to create the melody in multiple octaves. It comes throughout, and it just swells as it keeps adding in more strings and organ until it fades away. So we're going to listen to a little bit of it here. So it's just a little bit of the beginning there. So you can hear the drone going through. Then as it gets further into the music, we start getting more and more ornamentation in the organ, as we see here in the piano reduction. And one thing that's really interesting that Zimmer does in this piece is that he takes the opening theme and just makes it into different variations throughout the piece, but still it's still recognizable as the tune throughout. So like we see here, we got the A's in the middle of all these notes, and it goes to the B, and then in the next part I didn't put a big enough picture, but it goes back to the A and then to the C, and it pretty much follows this theme here, but spread out throughout all those ornamentation. And it's just really cool what he can do. And so it builds up this piece into it's got a sound of hope and discovery, which at this point in the movie helps to really sell what's like coming next. You know, it's really looking forward and like into space, into what is what needs to be done for the human race. And so I think that just this piece of music really helps push that into the viewer's mind. Moving on next, we got this piece called Mountains, and this one's my absolute favorite one. This is again we open up with time being a large element. This one like a clock ticking like a metronome in the background. And it's a slow burn as more instruments are added. It's very similar to the last one. And then the tempo picks up, and a choir can be heard, and then it just leans into a big climax of brass. And we'll listen to a little bit of this one here. So I chills every time I listen to that. But we look here at the music. Again, we've got another drone on E going through to help really cement that as the time's speeding up. We really feel that metronome going in the back. And leading into this chord here. But the way that he writes this with, you know, the with having a clock in the background and having the clock speed up, it really brings in just this tension of running out of time. And so with that, we're going to look at a clip from the movie of where this is at, and just how well this piece of music makes this scene even more tense. So yeah, it makes that scene into something almost completely different with the revelation of the wave in time with the brass hit, and it's what makes Hans Zimmer's music so good. So moving back into why this music is so good is not just because Hans Zimmer writes such amazing melodies and beautiful harmonizations, but because of how well this music fits into what's going on in the movie is what really sets him apart from other composers. Because it's not just to him, it's not about filling in space. It's about how much more emotion can we pull out of the film through the music that we put into it. And it makes it to where the experience of watching the movie, you really feel surrounded in it, especially with what the music is making you feel. So that's why I think that Hans Zimmer is one of today's greatest music movie music composers. Thank you for watching. And here's my sources.